In a world filled with screens and distractions, we invite you to reconnect with the natural world around you. Welcome to Nature Bound, a podcast dedicated to unpacking the intrinsic bond between humans and nature. We'll uncover the benefits of spending time outdoors, including how a nature-centric lifestyle can improve your mental health, elevate your leadership skills, and unleash your creativity. And now here's your host, outdoor enthusiast, and renowned author of The 7 Principles of the Magic Rock, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Nature Bound, where we're going to dig deep into fly fishing and hopefully fly tying, and we'll get some expert advice from Aileen Lane. Aileen, thanks for joining me today.
Hi.
It's great to have a fellow fly fisher person on the show, and I'd love to hear a little bit about your background and how you got started fly fishing.
Oh gosh, this was years ago. I was living in Boise. I grew up in California, but we moved to Idaho, and this was way back in 2005. And my ex-husband at that time thought it would be a great idea to have a wife that would tie flies for him.
That sounds like a great idea.
And I'm very, I love doing art and crafts. And so his friend had me take classes from a pastor there at a church. He had some fly tying classes. So, it was fun. I loved it. And I had no idea what fly fishing was all about.
Right.
So I had no idea. So I actually learned how to tie flies before I even wetted a line. I tied the flies. My husband would fish it, catch all these fishes. And I thought, and I would go with him on his trip and I would look under rock. I was very fascinated with the bugs, etymology, the whole cycle, and how that really, is a big part of fly tying and fly fishing, So, and he was very impatient. He would just set up my line and then just set it up for me. He couldn't teach me. And I really wanted to know, what do you do? How do I do it? So probably not until I left him. It was funny because in the divorce clause, he wanted to include that I would provide him flies after our divorce.
Well, that speaks to your skill as a fly tyer, doesn't it?
So I told him, well, he can always put it in order.
I love it.
But yeah, so that's how I got started into fly tying, and then started creating website. And it wasn't after after a divorce, went to LA, was there for a couple of years, but I came back to Idaho. It was a fly fishing community that that really welcomed me back, because I really had no friends or family there. But when I came back to Idaho in 2010, as a single mother, because I wanted my son to be closest to his dad, so we went back. And that's when I really getting onto the water and meeting people and learning from them, and really to this day have created such a strong friendship. They're just family.
Yeah.
So, it was wonderful to be out in the water. And that's where I started, people became interested in my flies and buying them. And also was part of Deer Creek resin, because I know that years ago there was this big competition about, companies who had the best UV resin for fly tying. Yep. And so I did, I'm still with Deer Creek, which is a UK company, and it's a small family-owned company that I really love. So that's how I really got into fly fishing, really. And it really is the friendship and, spending time outdoors. So that's how I got into.
Wow, that's a great story. Where are you fishing now these days?
Oh God, nowhere really.
Oh,
well,
that's
I'm in
not
Sedona
good.
now. I did, Oak Creek, I'll go down there when the weather's crappy, because then the tourists, because, it's a very much a tourist-driven town here.
Yeah, sure.
So it was, I think that was a hard transition for me because in Idaho, I can go anywhere and if I really wanted to, there are those popular spots where there's tons of people, but it's very easy to go somewhere where there's nobody there and you can really get a lot of peace
Yeah.
and quiet. A little bit more trickier here in Sedona. I have fished Oak Creek, but like I said, there's a lot of tourists. But I did back in November, and I'm thinking, oh my God, that's been months ago. But I did fish Lee's Ferry, which is
Oh yeah.
absolutely wonderful with Skip Dixon.
Nice.
Yeah, that was absolutely beautiful. And that's only what, 3 hours, drive, 2.5 from here. But
And that time of the year, what kind of patterns are you using?
so that one was all streamer fly fishing. So yeah, but I love dry flies. Dry fly, fly fishing dry flies is my favorite, and tiny flies. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So what's your favorite hatch? What do you like to fish? Like the
Oh gosh.
once a year that hatch comes out. What is it?
Well, I would have to say there's two of them, and one of them I don't know if I'll ever experience that again. But one of them is a trico hatch. I don't know if you're
Hmm.
familiar with trico, but we're talking about tine flies that are size even 20
Wow.
to 22, even down to 24. And there's a time in Idaho where, and actually where I fish is pretty close to Boise. It's more like it's the Oahe, which is in Oregon.
Sure. Yep.
But it was a time where there was so much water and rainfall, so it really lowered the temperature of waters, which made it ideal for tricos. And a massive hatch of tricos, and you go there in the morning and you can hear the trout feeding on top, and that was just so incredible.
Yeah.
That was probably the only year that I saw something like that. But my favorite I would have to say is in Silver Creek, Idaho for the brown drake hatch,
Oh
which
yeah.
comes up every around June or so. And that's more like it's like a big party where you gather together, you camp for days, and you always see people that you know. And so it's not really a time where you're going to be like in peace and quiet. It's like a big party, but it's
Yeah.
just so fun. And again, opposite of tricos, those drakes are huge and it's
Right.
just massive. But I
Y-
think I mean, it's more about being with friends and the community. But yeah, that's
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the drakes, but the trout are absolutely crazy for them, and they just keep feeding them on. You'll catch them, and they're still spitting them out. The ones they've already eaten, they're just
uh-huh.
it's a giant party for them too when that
Oh
hatch comes
yes.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. So you like the smaller flies. So you're probably well versed in the 2020 club, right? The size 20 and a
Oh
20
yes.
inch. Yeah. And
Well,
now, are you traditional click and paul kind of reel, or do you like to have a modern reel?
what for fly fishing?
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't know. Just a regular reel. What's the other one that you're talking about?
Oh, just like kind of the old style, where it doesn't have a real tight drag. It just is
Ah,
click and
okay. I
paul.
mean, I have fished one of those really old vintage reels. I mean, it's all fun.
Yeah, I like it. And so are you still on some other pro staffs besides Deer Creek?
No, just Deer Creek. I
Yeah.
haven't really been tying much since I came to Sedona, but I'm helping handle their Instagram. So there's probably about 50 on pro staff. So then I'll just circulate a lot of the pro staff flies on there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And then are you picturing yourself doing any travel anytime to go and get some fly fishing in?
You know, I'll have to see. It's just been so busy. I've also, because before I had a typical 9 to 5 job, it was in healthcare for almost 30 years, so that was very steady. Where now I'm pretty much have my own business. I'm a craniopsychotherapist, so it kind of
Uh-huh.
gets more trickier when you have your own business. Um, there is no such thing as a day off, or I have to actually
Right.
block the schedule. So, yeah, I tried to go back, I do try to go up into the White Mountains. I have a friend out in Phoenix, so we'll meet up there.
Yeah.
Down up on the reservations, there's some really great fishing, and surprisingly, there's not that many people there. Hardly anybody. I think most people go up there for camping, so that was a nice place. But again, that's another probably a 3-hour drive one way.
Yeah. Right. That's a big
So
push.
yeah, it is.
Well, as people are thinking about learning how to fly fish, what do you recommend people when they're, how do they figure out how to fly fish?
I think best thing is just take a class.
Uh-huh.
Because you don't want to develop bad habits. And I think taking a basic class on, even on etymology, the whole life cycles, understanding, because that's that, and then knowing how to set up your fly rods, how to read the waters. I mean, I think just taking a class on that itself will make a big difference. And then if you can, hire a guide, a good guide that
Nice.
will actually take the time to explain to you, what's going on and how to cast and stuff. So I think that's a good way to start. I know for women, there's a lot of good groups. There is the United Women of Fly Fishing, which my friend Heather runs, which is another wonderful where they have different programs on education. A lot of them are free. They have them online that you can watch, and then they also host outings. So I did fish Pyramid Lake with about
Oh yeah.
14 women out there, which was so fun. So that's
What
another.
time of the year was that when you were on Pyramid?
Oh gosh, when was that? I think that was in April
Yeah,
or
good time.
so.
That's a good
But
time. Yeah,
oh my
just
gosh,
warming up. Yeah.
it went up. Yeah. So, that's another way to just get out there, and they're out there to help each other. And so I think just getting involved, it's out there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love that the idea of hiring a guide, and I've been fly fishing for over almost 50 years now, and I still hire a guide on water that I'm unfamiliar with,
Oh, yeah.
or if I'm taking a new person fly fishing, I'll hire a guide and let the guide work with them and
Hmm.
teach them how to cast. So
Hmm.
it's always a treat to have somebody who's expert in that local fishery
Yeah.
uh, to pick their brain. So I appreciate that.
Hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So did you catch some fish when you were on Pyramid?
A pyramid. Oh, yes. That was fun. But, I'm not really much. I mean, it's a different type of fishing. It's basically, you're throwing out there and you're watching the bobber and sink, but it's fun. It's a great experience. It's not my favorite way to fish, but I think just the experience, and then the whole hunting trout is so beautiful though. Once
Yeah,
you get into the net, it's like wow,
and they're so big and so powerful,
they're
just
big and powerful.
shockingly big.
Yeah. But I'm more of a small stream fly fishing. I love that. One of the things I've been working on is Arizona has the Wild Trout Challenge, and so I've actually gotten all of the trout except the Gila trout I have, but it was stocked. So I need to go to a different river to get a wild one. But that's
Nice.
the only one I have left to
What
get.
are those fish? What are the fish that's on that list?
They have Apache, the Brookie, Rainbow Brown, and then the Gila. So I've
Okay.
gotten all of them, but the
Yeah.
Gila one I have to get a wild one.
All
So,
right. That's
but yeah,
fun.
I just love the small stream, fishing. I like. I mean,
And
they're
so
fun.
what is it? What is it that what is it that is the juice for when you're fishing a small stream? What is it? What's the attraction for you?
Oh gosh, I mean, those are usually dry flies, and it's amazing where even that the brookie that I caught there. I mean, the stream was probably very narrow. It's probably about maybe 2 feet wide only, and you
Uh-huh.
think there's nothing there, or you tiny, but there's actually a brookie that's hiding in there. It's a pretty good size, it's probably about 12 inches.
Yeah.
So it's always like a surprise where these small streams can hold fish,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And relatively large fish for the piece of water, right? That's what's
Oh,
amazing.
yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but yeah, I mean, I just love rivers.
And I mean, I know you mentioned that you do have some trips where you're with other people, but do you fish alone sometimes too?
I have, especially down in Idaho where I'm more familiar. I feel so much more, safer and stuff like that. Yeah. And in Oak Creek, I have fished alone. I mean, the creek is only about 15 minutes away from my house here.
Uh-huh. Nice.
But like I said, it's just, I don't like the crowd, the tourists here.
Well, that's understandable. Like I
Yeah.
think that's probably one of the hallmarks of everybody who fly fishes is that
Okay.
we want to have some space, and if we are going to be with people, we want it to be people we love and
Mhm.
know very well, and we don't
Yeah.
want a lot of strangers around. How has the practice of fly fishing contributed to you as a person and your personal growth?
Oh gosh. I mean, I think just being in fly fishing itself, I mean, when you fly fish, you're out there in nature. I mean, it's not really about the fishing itself. You discover that I would have to say the best time I ever had is the day that we get skunk with my friends, because when
Uh-huh.
you're out there, you're not really thinking about anything, and talk about being present in that moment.
Yeah.
At
Right.
least for me, I kind of forget about, the everyday, worries or the anxiety. You're just focused on being outside in nature. It's just beautiful. You're just taking it all in. And so I think that, you realize how important it is that we spend some time out in nature. It's very healing, and you really get to see the beauty that we have out here, and that we really want to, how important it is to really preserve that too. And then you want to teach others to keep it beautiful, keep it, because I mean, I have, okay, so on Oak Creek, with all the tourists, it's horrible when you see the amount of trash that gets left behind.
Yeah.
And you wonder, it's like, my goodness, it's like, it's so beautiful. Why? To me, it makes no sense. Where does that mindset comes to?
Yeah.
And I think we have to start with kids, and teach them about nature, and also to help preserve nature. I think that's an important part of that too. So, um, we know when I was fly fishing out in Hawaii, even then we would volunteer days where we would just go out there and clean up and
Right.
pick trash and so on. But it shouldn't be there in the first place. So I think educating, and then it comes with kids, because I know, like, there's great programs like Trout Camp, which my friend ran, where they would take kids and they would be camping for 5 days, and they would cover everything about, and it's not just about fishing, it's about conservation, it's about, cleaning up and taking care of nature and preserving that. So if we can get the kids involved, then hopefully they'll grow up to be responsible adults that
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I like that. I think we all need to take a kid fly fishing, and this should be on our list every year to introduce people to the sport and give them the strong narratives about all the things you're talking about taking care of of taking out the garbage, not leaving garbage, and then also securing these resources for the future generations so that people
Yeah.
can be outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much. Are you it sounds like you're not really selling flies right now. Is
I
that
don't. I pretty much tie flies for myself when I need to go.
yeah.
I have tied a few for people who have reached out to me, says, I really need that pattern and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I still have all my stuff, but yeah.
All right. Well, that's okay. If people want to get in touch with you, is Instagram the best way to do it, or how should
Yeah,
people reach out?
Instagram will work. I'm there on MK Flies. Uh-huh.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time this morning, and thank you for the conversation.
Well, thank you so much.
And I always love to talk to another dry fly fisher person because That's what I love the most too. So thanks, Aileen.
Thank you so much.
You have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Nature Bound. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Be sure to purchase your copy of The 7 Principles of the Magic Rock at emmanuelrose.com or on Amazon. We thank you again for joining us today, and remember to get nature bound.